Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babylon 9's match preview. This week, we've got Aston Villa at home in a massive, massive game. Hopefully, we can get the 3 points. And yeah, let's get into it. So, Mike Slough, we are fresh off a win in Europe, 2-0 win against AEK Larnaca. But before that, it was a 4-0 defeat against Brighton in the league, and we're very close to the bottom now, only 2 points off 20th place Southampton, which is crazy considering there's 13 games left to play. Are we feeling confident ahead of Saturday? How are we feeling going into it?
Yeah, title race begins now, mate. I think we all know how we feel, right? The Brighton game kicked the stuffing out of, I think, the team. I think they thought that they turned the corner. I think we all said, that performance against Nottingham Forest, one swallow does not make a summer, and I think that Brighton game proved to be the case. I haven't got any confidence in us at all at the minute. The one good thing is that we have a almost fully available squad to pick from.
Yeah. So how are you kind of feeling about it? We go into, this is our last kind of Premier League match before the international break. And then we have, some really important games coming up in April. I think there's going to be like 9 fixtures in April if we go through in the Conference League. So how important is this Sunday before that international break for not only the confidence, but the actual points tally at this stage of the season?
It is such an important game, and I think it's difficult to kind of to state just how vital I think it is for us to get 3 points, because as you said, we've got the games are getting fewer and fewer, but also we're getting closer to the bottom. And I know people like to keep saying how close this kind of group of about 9 or 8 teams are, and the fact that if you string a few wins together, then you're probably going to be like 12th or 13th, and that's great. But it also means that teams around you are picking up points, and you cannot rely on anyone but yourselves in this position. So in terms of my confidence, I don't even know if I'd associate that word with West Ham right now. I just think we all looked at the lineup that was going into the Brighton game, and we thought, oh, this is quite attacking. This is somewhat positive. And yeah, I think we all kind of said the result against Nottingham Forest is flattering, but it's not something that we should really be even assessing or putting towards Moyes' future. And yet we just got torn apart. So I have no idea what on earth, what West Ham's going to turn up. I find some of the selection very confusing at the moment. I find a lot of the comments from players over the past week or so, I find that very confusing. We're already hearing some pretty toxic rumours about Moyes, which I don't think would help. I don't think helps anyone. People might say it's, a good thing for them to hear that the manager's back. Well, I couldn't disagree more, particularly if you are one of the players who is unhappy under Moyes. And from what we're hearing, it's quite a few players. Yeah. I have no idea how this weekend will go. That's the short way to answer it.
Well, yeah, it is a massive game, and it's against a team that, are sitting pretty comfortable in mid-table. I would say they're just outside of the, the relegation battle with the points tally they're on. So let's just take a look at the head-to-head before we get into more of like the detailed breakdown. But yeah, so as you can see, both played 25 games, so 13 games left of the season. They're only 5 positions higher than us in 11th, but you look at that points tally, 11 difference. 11 points is massive at this stage of the season. So, Aston Villa will stay up pretty comfortably. It is the rest underneath that are in the mix, that bottom 7, I would say, including ourselves. And yeah, you can see the difference in wins there. We've only picked up 6 wins in the league this season, 5 of those coming from home. And yeah, our actual away win of this season came against Aston Villa way back in August, if you guys remember that 1-0 win. Fornals with a somewhat deflected shot that went in the second half in a very strange and odd game, just full of nothing really, and we kind of just scraped the win. So not really reflecting on that game, but kind of recently we've adapted that 4-3-3 now that we've wanted to see. We thought, okay, brilliant, it worked for Forest. Didn't work at Brighton. We completely got played off the park at Brighton. Do you think that was a system thing, or do you think that was more of an attitude thing? And going into this Aston Villa match, we should still be sticking with the 4-3-3 regardless of that result last week.
Stick with a 4-3-3. I think we went in with a loser's mentality against Brighton. Moyes was already saying to the players, and the players, even when you hear him going, we knew he was going to come here and not have much possession. We knew we had to, and then talk about, Brighton play in a unique way. It was all just defeatist. It was all just like they are a far superior team, and they were obviously on the day, and they play some great football. But also, they're still only top 8 at the moment. They were going great guns at the start of the season, but we're talking around they are elite Man City. Now, they're a very, very hard team to play against Brighton, and I'm not doing them a disservice because they are a fantastic team to watch and they are brilliant. And we even said earlier, they do play at a bit of an elite level in how they play, because they do things that elite clubs do in terms of how they play in possession, how they rotate positions and so on. But going into a game that you feel that you must win, the attitude seemed literally like, well, it's going to be like defensive shadow play. You're just going to be chasing shadows the entire game, just keeping a position, don't really attack them. And then we were beyond having any kind of idea of how to attack when we got the ball. And I think that was the problem. We went with such a defeatist attitude as to, we're not going to have the ball very often. I still think in Moyes' head, he thinks goals will come out of anywhere and anything. And still thinking that even though we'd been terrible all season at set pieces, a set piece is going to come off at some point this season. And I think that's just what it is. I would continue with the 4-3-3. I think it's the one that suits our players the most. I think it'd be hypocritical of us if we then turn around now and said, no, we need to change away from it, because we've basically said that needs to be what we play all season. So I think we have to remain with it. I think sometimes it's a personnel issue is what has hindered us with it.
What about, on the flip side, looking at kind of Aston Villa and, halfway through the season, before halfway through the season, they decided to change their manager. Steven Gerrard left and they brought in Unai Emery. At the time, Aston Villa were down there, they were struggling as well. He came in, got them a few wins. They've been pretty up and down so far, which is probably why they're, sitting where they are in the table in 11th. But they're coming off the back of 2 wins in a row now. They just beat Crystal Palace. It wasn't, only a few weeks ago that they took Arsenal pretty far and almost got a draw as well and played pretty well in that game. What do you guys make of Unai Emery and the impact he's made on Aston Villa, and how do you kind of see them posing a threat to us on Sunday? Because, he is a very good manager and he's shown it. And he's now, starting to make his mark at Aston Villa.
I think he's a fantastic manager. He is for me what I think Moyes thinks he is in his head, where he talks about being a proven winner. This guy is fantastic. And I know people might deride him for his time at PSG and his time at Arsenal, but I mean, if you're looking and judging those jobs from purely kind of his what he did and didn't win there, then you're kind of looking at them the wrong way. I think particularly the Arsenal job was very much a poison chalice. It was very much. Didn't
he also get the Europa League final? Or was
it's
against Chelsea.
He did really well in the job, but he was kind of thrown under the bus, particularly when it comes to transfers. And this is a guy who does win things. If you're looking at getting someone into the club to get you European football, they couldn't have picked a better manager to get them there. And I think, just to go back quickly, part of my worry is that the only place that Brighton are better than us, despite the I'm going to say disgraceful performance, is off the pitch. They are better than us in every single element of their entire setup. Their coaching, their recruitment, their medical facilities, their training grounds are levels above us. That is disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful for anyone who is involved at the football club. It should be shameful that we are in this situation. And it's not a disrespect to Brighton for me to say that. It's just a very clear statement of how poor we are set up as a club. And when we go and look and play it kind of almost felt to me like a show up performance and nothing more than just we'll go out and have a kickabout and we should beat them because we're better than them in terms of how we set up. But you need to have a manager who's willing to change things. Unai Emery is that manager. And if things are going badly, I guarantee you he would have at least made some changes in that side that would have affected the game. They might have only got one goal, but they would have at least shown a bit more work rate, at least shown a bit more effort. And that's what you can expect from this Villa team is under Unai Emery, they do a lot more running. He's categorically a better manager than Moyes. I don't care what anyone says. I like Moyes as a bloke, but as a manager, these are leagues apart. So
let's kind of take a look at the predicted lineups and try and focus on this game because I know we could go off on a lot of tangents. But so this is kind of the predicted lineups going into Sunday. As you can see from our team, there isn't too much change, just a few that you'd probably notice, which is Azuma coming in for a Bonner at centre-back. Looked like he got through that 90 minutes pretty comfortably, touch wood, against AEK Larnaca. And also the other potential change could be Ben Johnson coming out for Thilo Kehrer. Again, that one's kind of 50-50 as to what Moyes will do. But I think this is what we can expect to see. Antonio looks like he's picked up a little bit of a niggle. And Scamacca doesn't look match fit either, so it'll be Danny Ings starting. Ben Rama looks like he's picked up some more form as well. And Bowen got a pretty nice rest on Thursday. He only came on for 20-30 minutes. So also Aston Villa, look at their kind of flip side. They have a massive injury in the middle of the park, which is going to make them play someone like Ramsey alongside Louise instead of Kamara. He's been really instrumental to what they've been doing in the last few weeks. So he is a massive miss for them. And then, they kind of set up in a 4-4-2 away from home. So you'd expect someone like Leon Bailey to come in and play up top with Watkins. And John McGinn is a player that's been playing on that right-hand side recently, who may be more familiar as a centre mid, someone that Moyes actually wanted to bring into West Ham last summer and still admires as a player. So, let's just bring this back up. In terms of how they set up, let's look at Aston Villa for a moment, aside from us. What should we be concerned about in their lineup? Where are the dangers in terms of what we need to be wary of on Sunday?
Yeah, I think the thing is their fullback position can change as well. So, Digne and Cash may not actually start there. Ashley Young's played it right back a fair bit this season. Left side's been Moreno as well. Obviously, Bundia's coming in purely for Coutinho. He's a good player, but he's never really seemed to have done what he did at championship level at Norwich. He's always been a good player, but it's just not seemed to kind of really hit. Ramsey's going to be someone from deep. It's going to be interesting to see how they go with McGinn and Ramsey, whether they swap them and put Ramsey on the wing because he has played right midfield this season, and they bring McGinn inside, or they go as they have. I think what we're going to have to deal with is the fact they're going to try and create loads of central overloads, right? Look at that. Bundia's not going to hold left very often. He's going to look to come inside. McGinn's going to look to do the same. So really, it's going to be, I know it's a 4-4-2, but I think really in possession, we're looking at a team that's going to almost play a free in defence, because what they did in the game against Everton was Digne pushed really high on the left-hand side. The left midfield inverted. Then you had obviously Bailey and also Watkins would kind of split as well. So a midfielder could come in. That would normally be McGinn. Again, he would drop in centrally. So they kind of would go for almost 5 across the front. Then they'll have 2 sitting players. Now, I think without having Kamara, I think that does maybe change that philosophy, because obviously when they've Kamara and Louise, they have 2 defensive-minded players who are both comfortable in possession. That kind of changes now. So Ramsey, I don't think necessarily has that defensive mindset. So they could, again, as I say, they can overload us centrally, because I think they're going to do that. They're going to draw everyone in. They'll go for 3 at the back. in possession. And I think, they're just going to look to constantly overload us on those with the fullback positions, and then obviously invert everyone else and bring them in. So it's almost going to be the two wingers are going to actually play just behind the strikers, and then looking to slot in between Watkins and Bailey as they look to kind of split.
I think one of the things that could really cause us problems as well is that pace of Watkins and Bailey. That's going to be a real worry for us at the back. I do feel a little bit more confident about having someone like Aguerd there, Aguerd and Zuma, as opposed to Ogbonna. There's nothing against Ogbonna, he just has no pace, as we've said many times. But Leon Bailey's a really interesting one because he's an absolutely fantastic player on his day, but he seems to have fit this kind of, he seems to have fit this Jadon Sancho model of, what a young talent who just has not produced at all in the Premier League. And I really feel like this could well be one of those weeks where we just see him make that step up.
Well, their fans often say you either get the Messi of Leon Bailey or just the Adama Traore-esque of Leon Bailey.
Yeah.
Nothing comes off.
But the problem is Adama Traore always seems to bloody score against us.
or just we did have Cresswell playing.
Right, God. Leave Cresswell alone. He's not in this. All right.
So I do think that we have really got to watch out for their pace, but also their creativity and ability to link up. Because one thing that Buendia does do is he's got a fantastic ability to pick a pass. Now, if Luis sits deep, and that allows Ramsey, Buendia, and McGinn to work to bring the work rate and energy that they do, we are gonna have to really be on our A game defensively. And I'm sorry to say it, but I do just worry about Bowen. I just worry if we get the Bowen who turned up at Brighton, we're probably doomed.
Well, let's take a look at our perspective of the lineup. I think with what we've mentioned there and the fact that McGinn's likely to be playing on the right hand side and it offers a bit more of a defensive stability over there. Our progressive play often has been going down that left hand side. With Ben Rama being the key man in our attack. I actually think it's going to be Bowen this week because McGinn is going to be there, whether that's Cash or Young as well playing right back. I feel like they're going to try and double up down that side because a lot of our play, we saw it against AEK Larnaca. It was Cresswell instead of Emerson, but he would then, invert or try and overlap at times and give Ben Rama that support. And, on the right-hand side, it isn't really like that. We don't really have that kind of effect. So I think we're going to have to make it work on the other side because I think Ben Rama's going to have a tricky game if that is the case with McGinn, if he's not allowed that much time. And I don't know, how do you guys see it? Do you think it can play out that way, or do you think there's other avenues for us to kind of exploit Aston Villa?
I think the biggest thing is going to be how they match up on that right side of midfield, because that was Kamara's place. Now, if they go for McGinn, they can have something a bit more akin to what they had. If they go with Ramsey there, then I think that is an area then that we can look to exploit, because that means Ramsey's going to play on the same side as Rice. And Rice is very adept at finding spaces if a player switches off. Now, also, that means Rice is in a good position in which to defend Ramsey. So it kind of can help us out in that respect. And then it really means that if Rice is watching Ramsey and he's the player he needs to watch, Ramsey's not really going to be interested in going any other way in terms of defending. And that also then means that you have the potential to have Douglas Luiz pretty much isolated against, I know it's Souček, but physically he's a stronger player, but he'll make him then isolated against Souček and Paqueta. So it does then mean that we could arguably start to make some inroads. If we are adventurous and push Emerson high and bring Ben Rama inside as well, playing in that half space, that does also mean then that space behind Ramsey, if he's going forward, there's going to be space there for us. So, and I think as well, they know Ings well. So I think, and Ings knows their game. So I think that's the other thing. Ings is definitely going to look to go in behind. If you've watched the last few Villa games, if there's one thing they do not do well, that is follow runners in behind. They play a relatively high-ish line. And if we're sensible and we've watched them, because apparently we prep and we watch a lot of the opposition and prep for that opposition, we should understand that Villa play a high line. So we should be looking at the likes of Bowen and saying, you don't come short. you're going in behind.
I think that's where we could see. I think that is where we can see Bowen, at his best when a team does play that high line, and we see Bowen make that run between fullback and centre back, and we have someone like Paqueta. Hopefully, his passing is a bit better than what it's been to play that kind of final pass. Even Ben Rama, if Fornals isn't playing, to play that ball through to Bowen, because I think that is where we can get at Villa.
I'm probably going to make myself very unpopular right now, but I'm if we're hedging our bets on Bowen performing this week, then I think we're in real trouble, because he has been so one-dimensional this season, and even the areas where he normally excels, and he did in the Championship, he has been terrible in this season. He has looked like he couldn't care less about defending, which I know is not his strong suit.
I think that's harsh. I think he's always done defensive work.
I don't think it's harsh when we look at it and we've just lost 4-0 to Brighton. And yeah, we didn't. It's one of those things where we were due a bit of a hiding, and people like to use that line and hide behind it. But he's still very culpable for a lot of the goals that we concede on that side, because he doesn't tuck back and help his right back. He just doesn't chase back. And his delivery's been shocking this season. It's fair enough, but he is so one-dimensional as a going forward. It is. His delivery this season has been terrible. It's really inconsistent. And part of the reason that we have struggled is because he hasn't got anyone to push him. He hasn't got anyone that we can look in and say, right, you've had a bit of a rest, which is what he's had this week. This is what we're going to do instead. Right, he's really performed, so you're going to come off, and I want you to show me why you should come back into the side. Final 30 minutes, go. He's been diabolical, and you might say that's harsh. And
no, I don't think he's performed well, especially offensively. But I don't think his defensive, contribution should be kind of questioned, because I think he is one of the harder workers in the team. I don't think
he will puff his chest out.
But then there's this is the same argument you used to have about Robert Snodgrass. Just because you run around like a blue ass fly doesn't mean you're actually working hard. It means you're not working smart.
And you have to
doing the yards, but you're not doing things efficiently.
But look at the amount of times Bowen will come back and a lot of the time he will have to play almost as a right back for our right back, just because of the system we play.
It's
us, man. Look at what we do.
Play with Cresswell, and I know you said don't say it because Cresswell's here, but no, let's have it as it is. That's people coming back and having to defend as a left back.
Yeah.
Bowen doesn't have to come back that far. He comes back, granted, but often he's lazy. He switches off. He lets players run off him. Unless he's being shouted at and told where to go, he switches off. And that's why you'll see Souček covers so much that right-hand side. When it's been that double pivot, it's always Souček there, well before Bowen gets there. And it has been a case.
Yep.
I do like Bowen, but he can be lazy. He can switch off defensively. And a lot of runners come off of his shoulder. And the likes of Soufal have to do a lot of 1v1 defending.
Now you can
the same case not be made for someone like Ben Rama then, because if we're going to play that, if it's Ben Rama and Cresswell on the left, there's no way Ben Rama's tracking back and helping Cresswell as much as Bowen is. So
but
we can't then highlight Cresswell for being bad at defending one-on-one.
The difference is that Ben Rama is producing, and Bowen is not. Bowen has not produced consistently for the vast majority of the season. His delivery has been awful, or else he would have been getting more assists. His decision making has been entirely selfish, which is part of the problem with him and Antonio playing in the same side, is that they're so self-centered that instead of playing the easy ball, they're thinking, oh, I'll have a shot. And that's all well and good if you are selfish and you're producing, but you're not. It's the delivery. It's everything on that right-hand side at the moment is almost cannibalizing itself, because you can have Johnson bombing up and down, you can have Kehrer bombing up and down, but if he's not covered and he's not got that outlet of a delivery into the area, as opposed to just running at the defender and giving away possession, then it's irrelevant.
and to be fair to Ben Rama in this argument, Ben Rama is tactically positioned higher up the pitch. He's
Yeah.
meant to sit higher. He's not meant to come back as much because we have Declan Rice on that side. So Declan Rice is the person who comes over to cover in that spot more to allow us to have an outlet to then link with the centre forward.
I don't think it's a Declan Rice thing. I think that's if you play Fornals on the left, he'll drop just as deep as Bowen does. We saw it at Wolves away, for example.
But again, you have to then consider he's playing because of the personnel we're playing against. He's playing because we're expecting to do more defensively, or we're expecting to maybe get more double ups, more 2v1s or overloads. So he plays Fornals when he knows he needs to have someone who's going to essentially work up and down. In games where he thinks that there's an opportunity or there's less attacking intent on that side, he'll tend to play Ben Rama. Obviously, there's been games where he hasn't, but that's because, again, to Sloth's point, Ben Rama's been performing, so you can't then not play him. And we have seen against the likes of Man United, he has been a better defender than Bowen has on the other side. So he will make mistakes and he will give the ball away, but he doesn't shirk his defensive duties.
So would you guys play Bowen on Sunday? Would you start Bowen?
Wouldn't. No, I
Who would you start on the right?
We haven't got anyone.
Who would you start on the right?
If I would personally, I'd put Fornals there because yet again, it's another case of, well, if he's happy to swap him in for Ben Rama, why isn't he happy to swap him in for Bowen? Because for me, Bowen is offering nothing. He's offering nothing except embarrassment on the pitch after last week.
And but how many times have we sat on the show and said Fornals isn't a winger, and now we're just happy putting him out on the right? Like, because
at least one of them is producing. It's the fact that
what is Fornals producing? Fornals hasn't produced more than Bowen.
But this is part of my point, and the problem is that we're saying we're kind of making excuses for Moyes to drop his behaviour in dropping, or his decision making in dropping Ben Rama for Fornals, but he suddenly can't do it when Bowen is performing very badly and he can't swap Fornals in for him. It's like it's the double standards of it all. And look, Bowen on his day is a fantastic player. He's brilliant, but he's not performing. He clearly needs a kick up the arse. So drop him for Fornals, who will give you that defensive cover on the side. And then after 60 minutes, go, this is your chance. Show me why I was wrong to drop you. Because Ben Rama, as I said, he is producing and he is giving you assists. He's giving you goals. Bowen is not doing that. So give that consequence. Make sure he is aware he can be dropped because of bad performances and diving, which is something that we know Moyes hates. So why is he not also akin to the consequence of his actions? It's baffling to me that's not something that people are talking about.
Yeah, I definitely agree that Bowen has been very much underperforming this season. I just think the defensive side, I don't think we can really question, because I think he works hard defensively.
I don't think he does.
He may work hard, but then again, so did Snodgrass. And if we had the same argument, he would make a silly tackle. He would switch off. Someone would run off him. I'm all for players working hard, but sometimes players work hard but don't work smart. And at times, Bowen is that type of player defensively. He will run around like a blue-ass fly. And to many people, they go, well, he's working hard, but he's not winning the ball. He's not really winning in any duels. He's not actually doing a great deal. And also, if we look at the game against Chelsea, for instance, he had more than a 50-50 against Midtjylland, which resulted in their goal, because rather than winning the ball, he was concentrating more on, we're trying to tip my toe on it, try and dink it over him. We lost the ball in a dangerous area, and that then resulted in a little bit of play that they scored from. But rather than going in full-blooded to win the ball first, put Souček in that same situation. Souček is flying into that within a slide tackle.
But he's not Souček, though. He's a winger.
But it's the point of, you are a player in a situation where you need to win the ball.
And Fornals is a winger. Isn't a winger, sorry. And we're still saying about him being on that side every so often because of Moyes.
Fornals is a bad tackler, but he goes in. And this is the point. Yeah. Like, Fornals is bad. And like, in fairness to Sloth, I know you don't agree, Frankie, but in fairness to Sloth, Bowen's been terrible at times this season. Yeah. And he has had zero consequence for that. But
I agree.
Antonio has finally had consequence for it, which is why his nose has been put out of joint. But he has though. Did get dropped for Skamaka eventually. Probably a bit too low, but he got dropped for Skamaka. Now Ings is in. Ings is there. Fortunately for Antonio, he's just scored the last few games, so he's coming up that ladder a bit. But
yeah,
he's had consequence. Bowen has had zero.
Absolutely. I think I definitely agree with that. It should be that we have someone else to come in for him. But the reality is we don't. And if it's between someone like Fornals right wing and Bowen, I'm picking Bowen. Like
but you're picking.
If Bowen doesn't perform, then what do we do? Do we then go Bowen to play again because the result is we have to go Fornals? If the likes of Ben Johnson gets pulled over hot coals for his last performance, Bowen needs to also get the same. He says.
But what from Bowen's performance is what from Bowen's performance is dragging him over hot cold. Ben Johnson in that last performance, there was 3 goals that he was at fault for.
No. He had a part to play. He was not at fault for.
Yeah, majoritarily he was at fault.
No. People will say that because they love a scapegoat, because they love to just say one player. No, hang on. That whole first goal, no one pressed the player with the ball and played the pass. Yes, he misjudged the flight of the ball, and he tried to save himself by putting his arm out. Bowen then came in stupidly, bundled in the back. Bowen all had to do was get alongside him. There was another defender there. So actually, Johnson does make a mistake, but also the mistake was no one pressing the person who made the pass. Bowen then gave away essentially a clear shot at goal. Bowen is the culprit. Sorry, simple as that. If you give away the penalty, you are the culprit.
Second and third goal.
But then we're going back to.
There are other players in the whole situation.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Look, it's not just him. This is the point I'm trying to make. It's not just Bowen. It's not just Bowen. We can't just pin everything on Bowen.
We're not. That's the point. We're not pinning it all on Bowen. We're just saying that there has been no consequence for when he has played badly. He gets then in the team the next week. He didn't get dropped for the game. He got rested. This is the difference. He only ever gets rested. He doesn't get dropped. And other players who are culpable, Ben Rama's been talked about always losing the ball. He has a better ball retention than Bowen over the last 2 seasons. Not only when he dribbles, but also in passes. He's involved more in play. But he is the player that will get dropped and said he's not doing enough. Truth is, he got 16 goals and assists last season. Granted, Bowen got a lot more. But if you look at it in terms of overall involvement for West Ham, he was far more involved in every single game. Again, far better in his dribbles and his success rate there. Far better in his possession rate as well. A lot of Bowen's assists came from set pieces. So again, people utilize stats in a way that made it more positive and ignored other ones that made him look worse. And it's the same again this season. And people go, yeah, but his work rate. It doesn't matter. If you're running around and not making an actual contribution, that is either a benefit to the defense or a benefit to the attack. What are you actually doing? Because there were times.
Right. Let me just say my last point on Bowen, because my point is not the defensive side. Like, forget that. Look, I've always thought Bowen works hard for the team, regardless of this past 2 seasons, even when it was going well for him. The thing that has let him down this season is his offensive output. I don't see Bowen as a creator like Ben Rama. I see Bowen as a finisher. And what he hasn't done this season is finish chances when he's gone through. The only time Bowen will create something is from a set piece. And yeah, that's where he's been poor. But we've just been poor from set pieces, anyone that's been taking them. But what has let down Bowen this season is finishing chances. Look at it against Spurs away when he went through a 1-on-1. Look at it against Brighton, he went through 1-on-1 and missed. Like, it's not... I don't think it's his defensive thing we should be focusing on. I think it should be the offensive stuff and actually finishing chances that he should be finishing.
I think it's the fact that he is so one-dimensional that when he plays, if his finishing is on key and he is performing well in that area, then we're not having that conversation because we're winning games. But he has been so culpable this season in terms of the fact that his decision-making has been poor. His delivery has been really poor. And you can't hide that. Now, part of my problem... Part of what I was trying to say was that if you look at the consequences of the actions, Moyes, if Ben Rama had dived at the weekend, Moyes probably drops Ben Rama and publicly slates him. Bowen dives, and yet we're still talking about him keeping his place in the team. And we're also not just doing that, we're saying, no, we can't drop him for Fornals, but we can drop Ben Rama for Fornals when it suits us. It's that sort of thing that confuses me. And look, it's not a case of I don't rate Bowen. It's the fact that we've had him for for a long time now, and he's not improved in other areas of his game. That, for me, is a big problem when you're a coach and a manager, is that if he had worked on it, if he's working on his finishing and he's scoring, great. But you also need to be improving other areas of your game. And his decision-making has been woeful. His delivery has been woeful, but also his defensive decision-making, like we said, and we focus on that Brighton aspect, even just getting the right side of your man, that's essential. And it's not improved in the time he's been here. Now, I'm going to get people say, yeah, but last season he could have been in the England squad. Well, okay, yeah, he probably deserved it. But the part of the reason he wasn't is because of that one-dimensional aspect of his game. Now, if he had been trialled up top and instead of Antonio or Scamacca, we're trying to play him there, then yeah, you'd kind of say he's getting used to a different position, the role's different, and that's impacted him. But there's been no consequence for his poor repeated performances on that right-hand side. And that's what is really disappointing me.
Right, let's end this preview before we go on about Bowen for an hour. But yeah, I definitely agree with that. He has been poor, and if someone like Cornet was fit, he probably would have been dropped a lot earlier this season. The fact is, we just don't have another right winger, and I wouldn't want to see us replace him for someone that doesn't play in that position. So yeah, how are you guys feeling going into it? Let's get our score predictions and how we think the game's going to go, because focusing on the actual game itself. Focusing on the game itself is a massive game, and it's a must-win in terms of the relegation battle. So, are we confident going into the weekend?
No, absolutely not. No, I think if Aguerd and Zuma do start, then I feel a little bit better. But I just have no idea what West Ham's going to turn up, and I think if we play anything remotely like we did last week, we'll be put to the sword again. And I could see us conceding a lot. But if we play, I even think if we play like we did against Forest, we'll still concede because we gave them a lot of chances. And I think the best we can do is a point. That's what I think we'll do. I think we'll concede. So I think 2-2 is what I'm going to go for.
Mike, any different?
Our record against Villa is actually surprisingly good in the last 7. So since they've been up in the Premier League, we've beat them, I think, 5 times, and then we've drawn the other 2. So if you go with history, it's either a win or a draw, because it just seems to be the way it is. I think the players have a point of proof. I think the problem is, though, if we concede first, it's going to get hostile, and I can see us crumbling. I do think if we do concede first, that the fans actually will get behind the players.
Yeah.
At half-time, full-time, maybe there'll be rumblings. I do think fans will be behind the players as long as they are giving something. If they turn up like they did against Brighton, we'll get turned over again, and the place will get nasty towards the manager, towards the players, towards the board. Yeah. And the game will be over. Even if it's just a 1-0, the game will just get spiteful in terms of the crowd and the toxicity within it. I think what's going to be, we need to score first, I think, in this game.
Yeah.
If we don't score first, I don't see us coming back from behind to get a draw or a win. I don't think you can take anything really from the Larnaca game. I don't think the players really cared in the Larnaca game in the end, especially that second half. The touches were woeful. I know people were just saying things like Scamacca, he looked woeful. It's like, yeah, because he came onto a dead game. Everyone on the West Ham team looked dead and didn't care. Souček probably about the only one in that second half, really. And Cornet when they came on. But really, none of those players they were all just like, over. So we need to have the right attitude. We need to play with intensity. At the moment, I don't know if the players are behind what the manager wants to do. I do think if it gets a bit sticky in the game, the players might unravel. So I can see Villa breaking their hoodoo, to be honest. It might be a 1-0. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game like we've seen in some of the games when we played Villa. To our benefit, but I think it could be Villa 1-0. I'm just concerned that if the game gets tense and tight, the players will get tight. And then what will happen is they won't then play freely. I think Villa is a team we could play freely against because they've got a few injuries. And I think if we score first, that might happen. We might be more relaxed. But if the game goes on for a while and there's no goal, I just see the team getting tighter and tighter. I can see Moyes not wanting to freshen it up soon either. That's going to add additional pressure because you're not bringing anything different, and Unai Emery will. So I just think it's, as Sloth says, it's going to be two managers who talk about themselves at a high level, and one is of that level. The other one is a run or two down, but it talks a very good game. Yeah, as I say, guys, I just see 1-0 Villa. I just see Villa nicking it. I think they'll overload us massively centrally, and they'll do us in the 1v1s in the wings.
Go on, Frankie, give us some positivity.
I'm actually going to give some positivity, and I think it alludes to what Mike was saying in terms of we need to score the first goal, and I think actually we need to do better than that. We need to score in the first 20 minutes, and I think we've seen that a lot at home this season. We've pressed.
But not in that. To that point, though, Frankie, we are the only team in the Premier League who hasn't scored in the first 15 minutes of a football game.
And that's exactly what I was going to allude to. We need to break that. We need to make sure we make count of the pressure, early pressure. Against Forest, we did that. We didn't score, and we got away with it in the second half, and they didn't score when potentially they could have on the counter. Villa won't let us off. They've got quality in their team, and they will score if we play the same way. So I think we need to score first. I think we need to score early. And I think we're gonna. I do think we're gonna score.
Players and put it in the top corner.
I'm getting to it. I'm building up. Don't worry. I think we'll win. I think we'll have enough. I think the players know exactly how much this will mean. We've only got 13 games left, and I think we'll have enough on the day if we do get that first goal to go on and win it. So my final prediction: 3-1. Bowen brace.
Oh, lovely.
Bowen brace. Remember this. Remember this moment. We're going to come back to the review, and Bowen's going to score twice.
Yeah. I do agree with you. I think if we get a goal in the first 15, the place will be absolutely rocking.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. If we can get an early goal, it will settle the crowd because we're going to be tense. I'm going to be there anyway, so I know I'm going to be tense for that first 15. And then if we get the goal, I think it will simmer down the crowd in terms of the anxiety, and then we'll get behind. Because let's face it, off that Nottingham Forest game, that was rocking when the goals went in such quick succession.
Yeah.
So if we can get a goal early, I think it will do that. And I know we've battered Bowen today, but it's, as we said, it's not because we think he's a bad player or he can't defend. It's just the fact that there's never really seems to be a reprisal. Hopefully he has a good game, because if he does, that means he's probably going to be involved in the goals one way or another. He tends to be when he has a good game.
Yeah.
But I think the thing we've got to exploit is we've got to look to get him behind. So the likes of Bowen and Ings have got to constantly, throughout the game, not come short, just constantly look to go in behind that back line. Only player coming short has to be Ben Rama of any of those. Again, Souček, just be the man who just stands on the centre-back. If they want us to have someone there, just tell Ings, sod that. You roam and look to constantly get in behind whenever we get the ball. Same with Bowen. That's all you're going to do all game. Yeah. If we're going to put anyone on a centre-back, Souček, that's you. You break up there. You stand on the centre-backs. You make them honest. And then let's play the game like that. That's, I think, our inroads is we have to try and exploit their high line, because a 4-4-2 is a pretty sound and balanced formation. They've got a sound and balanced manager as well. So any small advantage we need to take, and we need to take it early.
Yeah, Well, we're going to see on Sunday at 2 p.m. kickoff at London Stadium. Massive game against Aston Villa. Hopefully we can get the 3 points and maybe get a bit more of a gap again on that bottom three, because it is getting very tight down there. And there's, as we keep mentioning week on week, less games, and we've got 13 games to go now. So it is getting massive. But yeah, if you've enjoyed this preview, a bit of a longer one, make sure to leave a like on the video. Follow us over on Twitter at Babbling Irons. Subscribe to the channel if you are new as well, as we're pushing 500 subscribers now, which is great. And yeah, lads, until the next one.
Come on,
Go
you
on,
guys.
you guys.